last video we talked about this inflation tied cost, and it was a very long formula. So I want you to wanted to go over it one more time. So if you think of all of these, the highlighted part of the formula bar, these are costs you have to pay every year. But all of these costs will change over time, and so the general formula that I had in mind here was, say you have to pay A this month, this year, and then next year also you have to pay A. But inflation will make the value of A go up. So if inflation is, say, equal to I, next year you'll have to pay A multiplied by 1 plus I. All right? And then the year after you will have to pay A multiplied by 1 plus I raised to the power 2. So every year the amount that you're having to pay is going up by a certain amount, which is usually equal to the inflation rate. We can talk about this more in class. So if you buy that, that's what we're doing here. We're saying all of these costs that we have put inside parentheses here are going to be, will rise every year due to inflation, and it's going to rise by 1 plus the inflation rate raised to the power of the number of year minus 1. So on the first year, we're assuming there will be an inflation because everything is set, but the second year it will be, we'll have to adjust inflation for 1 year. Third year we'll have to adjust inflation for 2 years, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's what this is doing. And then total cost, fairly simple. It's this number plus that, right? So if I look at total cost, I highlight it, it's those two numbers. Now here's a case where we're not using the dollar sign, and we're not doing that because we want the second line to read F11 plus G11, not F10 plus G10. Similarly, the next line we want it to read F12 plus G12, okay? So sometimes there is a use for dollar sign, sometimes there is no use for dollar sign. In fact, if you look at this formula again, notice there are dollar signs in all of these. However, there's no dollar sign here on E10-1 because E10 is the number of year and we are adjusting by inflation based on the number of year. The power changes. All right, so that's total cost. Then we have total earnings, and total earning, if you look at it, is C17, C plus C17, which is nothing but your tax saving of 1,000. And then we have this part, which is C11, your expected rent, multiplied by 12 minus the number of months you think you won't have rent. And this whole thing, we are also adjusting for inflation because you will charge different rent based on which year you're in. So this part is again very similar to that inflation tied cost part. All right, so then once we have that, we can pull it downward. So even if we didn't have any of this, so say we were writing this formula the first time around, all I have to do is kind of write formula for this first cell and then drag it down, and it would fill it in. Okay. Now, annual income, once I have total earning and total cost, is going to be basically total earning minus total cost. Okay. The red basically says that it's negative. Notice I just added them because these negatives, this red colored numbers are already negatives. So when I add these two numbers, it's a positive number minus a negative number. So that's basically your annual income, which is saying you lose a certain amount of money. And then I dragged it down. Similarly, monthly rent, I'm just taking the monthly rent that we have here, and then I'm adjusting it for the inflation. Cumulative income is basically the sum. So here we are using the sum function of J10. Here we are saying add everything for these two periods. So basically add everything from J10 to J11. And notice I put a dollar sign on J10 but not J11. So once I pull this thing down, I get sum from J10 to J12, sum from J10 to J13, basically saying for the first year, just take this income. For the second year, take these two incomes. Third year, add all of this three. This will give me my cumulative income.